Welcome to the Tesla Economist. Please hit the thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe. The electric version of America's best-selling car, the Ford F-150, has just been unveiled. Let's go over what we're being told and see how it compares with Tesla's Cybertruck. With over 70 years of experience in building F-Series trucks, let's see what Ford can create in the way of an electric pickup truck. Just a side note, let's call a spade a spade. This is not a serious transition for Ford. They're not about to give up their internal combustion F-150 series, as this is the lifeblood of the company. They need to stand up against Tesla and show the world that they can compete in the EV market and hold their own against the Cybertruck. They're not likely to be doing any serious numbers. It's all about marketing. I mean, hey, they even had the President of the United States drive it. Cronyism at its finest. Anyway, it's important to have an objective opinion on what the competition are doing, so I will do my best to be unbiased. It's meant to be launched in spring 2022. Therefore, the Cybertruck will beat it to market, with Cybertruck now assumed to be delivering later this year. My initial thoughts on it are it's just a typical looking pickup truck. Clunky, nothing really revolutionary here. But I guess nicer looking than the previous F-150, mainly due to the futuristic looking headlight, not too dissimilar to the Cybertruck front light. Not my kind of design though. The door handles aren't even flush. I mean, just look at it. This is about the least aerodynamic a car could be. The drag coefficient of a Ram 1500 is 0.36, which is the most aerodynamic pickup truck aside from the Cybertruck at 0.3, so we would expect the F-150 to be worse than the Ram. In addition to that, the Cybertruck's bed, aka the vault, the fact it closes also affects the aerodynamics, as the bed is not effectively acting as a sail against you. But, I mean, just look at the shape of the Cybertruck, and you can tell just how much thought has gone into an efficient design. As for the interior, well, it's ugly as hell. Just a big, disgusting plastic mess. Still plenty of buttons, ugly HVAC vents, and they've gone with the same center console as the Mach-E. Ford call it the Sync 4A, which has had bad reviews, and it's not even widescreen, which is obviously the direction to have gone, and it's only standard on the upper market versions. Even the steering wheel has lots of buttons. There is an additional digital display behind the wheel too, which is an optional extra along with the console. No photos of what it looks like without those, but presumably even uglier. As you can probably tell, I'm not a fan of how it looks. Am I being biased? Well, just imagine if Tesla had launched the Cybertruck and it looked like this. I would have strongly considered selling some shares. Ford just seemed to have a much lower standard to reach. Tesla has set the bar for themselves very high. I feel like Ford just get a participation trophy at this stage, really. What about features? Well, it has power outlets like Tesla, but it doesn't have the air compressor. Presumably no air suspension either, which means the suspension cannot adjust to the weight of your cargo. It does, however, have scales, so you can at least know the weight of the cargo you're carrying. I'm not sure if the Cybertruck has scales, but I would have thought Tesla could add it if they wanted to, with an over-the-air update even. It does, however, have the ability to power your house, if you're in a blackout, which Teslas do not currently do. Elon did explain why in Battery Day, and it sounds like it's because it's best to work through a battery, implying that Teslas will be able to power houses too, but working through the Powerwall, not directly to the house. By the way, Ford's version is not the same as V2G or vehicle to grid, as you won't be sending power back to the grid. It's more just like a battery-powered generator. At 9.6 kilowatts, Ford say that this will power a house for 3 days based on 30 kilowatt hours use a day, which comes in at least a 90 kilowatt hour battery, assuming they wouldn't run the house from full charge to empty either. Of course, this feature is an optional extra too. Ford seem to have lots of clever features for trailers. Presumably trailers are important to their target market. Now, they do have a very large frunk, so large in fact that they had to call it the Mega Power Frunk. But it's good they put that huge drag coefficient to some use. There is also an optional moonroof. It can do over-the-air updates, but this is just the firmware. They're trying to convince you it's like a Tesla, but Ford's OTA will not be able to improve things like your range, braking or performance. It might just update a bit of the interface. In other words, it's just a battery-powered car. Tesla make digital cars. No one else does that, and I feel it's missed. The range for the F-150 Lightning starts at an estimated 230 miles. If you compare this to the Cybertruck at 250 miles for the same price, then Ford are not that far off. However, the maximum range they were capable of was only 300 miles, compared to the Cybertruck at over 500. In other words, not even close. But seriously, look at how heavy the F-150 must be, not to mention obviously how less efficient the drivetrain, motor and software are. In other words, it's going to need a pretty big battery range. I'm not joking, but it could be as high as a 100 kilowatt hour battery, and that size battery is not cheap, especially for Ford. Even the Mach-E only generates 210 miles range with a 68 kilowatt hour pack. See what I mean now? Think how much bigger the battery would need to be to get 230 miles out of this massive vehicle. For a more comparable example, the Hummer is meant to have a 200 kilowatt hour battery with 350 miles of range. But I must admit, I was surprised at the starting price of the F-150 Lightning at just $40,000, which is pretty much the same as the starting price of the Cybertruck, which is a bit too close to home, and only with slightly less range. In reality, Ford can set the price to whatever they want. Their aim with this model is not the make or break of the company when it comes to profitability. No, you have to identify their true intentions here. Obviously, they need to defend their most popular model, their hallowed F-150 line, by proving that they are capable of standing up against Tesla's Cybertruck in order to keep up their stock price. Even if they are losing money from each sale, the cars will still be in limited production anyway. They don't have the battery supply to make it to mass market even if they wanted. And there was no mention of how many they might plan to produce. They don't want to cannibalize their existing ICE F-150 range, as this model is carrying the entire company. It is their most profitable line. Think about it like this. Ford's market cap is about $50 billion. If they lose $10,000 per sale of their F-150 Lightning and sell 50,000 a year, then that's only a loss of $500 million, or 1% of the company value. If it looked like they were going to miss out on the EV market, the company could lose more like $20 billion of their value. Let's talk about the model versions. First we have the $40,000 entry model, which is coming soon? Yeah, coming soon. And that's all we're told about it, according to the website. In other words, I don't believe the 40,000 model will even be out next year. And maybe not the year after that. And quite possibly not the year after that. But hey, it's on the cards sometime, because they said so. And it's great publicity that they were able to compete as low as the Cybertruck, or even lower if you include the tax credits. Except if this version ever is launched, those tax credits will likely be exhausted by then. The lowest end model that will be launched is the XLT, starting at $52,974, with 230 miles range, $3,000 more than the dual-motor Cybertruck, with 300 miles of range. And this version doesn't even come with the Sync 4A, as standard, and actually has cloth seats. In other words, it sounds like Ford are really trying to squeeze every penny on this one. It's going to be very basic. But look, Ford have done a great job at getting their F-150 production costs so low over the years, and that's what this is, a very basic F-150 with battery power. But seriously, this sounds about as basic as it can get. How are they able to make a more basic model for $13,000 less? The top model is called the Platinum. This does come highly optioned, with Sync 4A screen, heated leather seats, 22-inch wheels, the moonroof, and even a B&O stereo. It is capable of an estimated 300-mile range, with acceleration of 0 to 60 somewhere in the mid-4s, which is a much better performing car. Oh, but it costs over $90,000. Oops. Oh, right. And it's not even close to the Cybertruck, which has acceleration of 0 to 60 under 2.9 seconds and a 500-mile range. Did you hear that? The Cybertruck is more than $20,000 cheaper. It has 67% more range and reaches 60 miles an hour over 1.5 seconds quicker. Oh, yeah, and it has towing capacity of 14,000 pounds compared to Ford's 10,000 pounds. Not to mention the exoskeleton and everything else that goes with the Cybertruck. Oh right, and Tesla probably achieved that with about a 30% gross margin too. The Cybertruck absolutely obliterates it, as much as they can try and disguise it with various features like the big frunk. When it comes to EVs, the main thing that matters really is range. That's the real tech. And don't forget, Ford also have to spend a fortune on advertising this. No doubt a Super Bowl ad too. Oh yeah, and about 10% to all dealers who don't want to sell them in the first place. Where's the profit? The entire car is an ad, not an actual product. It's just an ad to show their shareholders, hey, look, we can be convincing enough to also keep up with Tesla. But we are Ford. We've been making cars and trucks a lot longer. This is our game, not some Silicon Valley company that's only been around for not even a couple of decades. And you know what? I bet this strategy works too, at least for now. Give it a few years and the truth will come out. Legacy companies can't transition to tech. Literally, just like Disney trying to compete with Netflix. It's not going to happen. I know Ford may have convinced some of you, and definitely others out there, that they are catching up to Tesla. But when you read between the lines enough, this is actually great news. They've actually shown just how far behind they are. And I didn't even have to get into the FSD. This has actually cheered me up a bit from Tesla's stock price being down, and reminds me just how amazing a company Tesla truly is. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe.